Welcome to this course on succeeding and thriving as a working parent. I'm also a working parent, as you can see from my t-shirt. Number one dad. I hope you can see the dad gets kind of cut off. It just becomes number one or Mickey Mouse. Anyway, in this course, I'm going to share with you my strategies for a work-life balance, making sure you maintain a good level of health, physical health and mental health, and the health of your relationships with your children, with your spouse, and doing all that while giving your children a great foundation for their entire life, and at the same time working so that the foundation is financial but also socially adjusted because you're present and working with them. That's what we're going to do in this course. So welcome, and let's begin. Now I want to give you some food for thought on what it really means to provide for your children. And I'm not going to tell you what to do, it's not my place, but I'm just going to give you some ideas to think about. Because since this is a course about working parents still being productive and raising healthy children, well-adjusted children, well, what does it mean for you to provide? Is it sending them to the best school, buying a house in the best neighborhood that's safe, getting them the best of everything? You see, when you create such a challenge for yourself, you create a world of infinite need, which is going to make you have to work so much, which if that was it, would be fine. But the more you work, the more you take away time from actually spending time with your children, because spending actual time where you are present and fully connected and working and actually showing your children how to behave, how to live, teaching them about things, that's also an amazing school. So is the value of a private elementary school greater than being able to pick your children up from school every day or take them to school? That's up to you to decide. But what I want to suggest is that there are so many of us parents who think, okay, material goods and services for children, toys, house in a safe neighborhood, education, that's really expensive, right? So most of us can't afford everything. There's like perhaps 1 or 2% of the population who can afford all these things, and everyone else has to live in the real world of balance. And that's the tricky thing, is that somehow you have to spend enough time with the children while doing enough at your job, but not overcorrecting to either side, because once you overcorrect to either side, that's where it's dangerous. And providing both is also, if not impossible, it's extremely hard, because both have infinite needs. There isn't a measurement like, I'm going to need $1 million and then I'm okay with my child's education and providing and all the toys for the lifetime. There's no such answer. There may be if you talk to a financial, accountant, financial planner, but it's still going to be approximate. Same thing with how much time you should spend. There is always that guilt. I should have spent that afternoon with the kid in the park instead of doing something for work, but then the work needed me and so I didn't spend time with the kid. There's always this. It's almost daily. And like I said, I'm not going to tell you what to decide, but I just want you to start thinking about, for you, what it means to provide for your child. And even though you can't count how many hours are enough at work or with your child, it's a fluid situation, at least conceptualize what it would mean for you to have a healthy relationship with your child so that you can give them everything you can give, and at the same time how many hours you have to put into your work to accomplish the goals that are reasonable. And reasonable is key, because if you don't pick something specific and decide on what's reasonable, that is always going to clash with the need for infinite, provide infinite for them, and that's always going to stress you out. So identify what's reasonable for you, plan for it, and that way you won't at least have the inner stress of thinking, oh, you're not doing enough of either, and overcorrecting on both ends, which is impossible anyway, and that will just create a snowball of stress for you. So definitely create that world of sanity for yourself. It will be better for you, for your work, and for your children. In parenting, especially if you have young children, you already know that the most important thing for their well-being, their mental health, and actually your mental health as well, is sticking to a routine. So in this video, I'm going to give you an approximate routine that you can follow with, of course, the caveat that different people have different kinds of jobs. Some people work from home, some people have to go to the office, some people have babysitters, some people have grandparents, and they're all available at different times. So of course, you would have to adjust this routine to whatever nuances and details that are specific to your case. But in any case, in this video, I'm going to give you a skeleton of a routine that is a well-rounded routine for the children and for the parents. And in the next video, I'm going to give you an example of how I actually followed it. So usually young children wake up around 6 a.m. pretty early in the morning. Some of them wake up earlier, some later. So generally speaking, you have from 6 a.m. a nice, pleasant wake up. It's very nice to spend the time with your children, especially when they wake up. That's a very special moment. Have breakfast with them. That's a very special moment. Do a little playtime, and around 7:30 start to get ready for the daily activity. It's on the early side to get ready because you know that your children will argue about every shoe and every sock, and it always takes longer than if an adult did it by themselves. So in order to not stress out, you give yourself approximately an hour to get ready. That gives you time to turn getting ready into playtime and fun time rather than stressed out time. Then at 8:30, you head out to the daily activity. If your kids are a little older, they'll go to school. And of course, they may go to school at very different times. Some schools start early, some schools start a little later. It all depends. So you would just basically adjust this to whatever time that you have. But essentially, you go to the daily activity. It's either school or a park. That's usually what kids do. Or maybe some kind of a special activity like some science center or something else educational that's not too common. Usually it's like park or school or some kind of daycare. But in any case, for young kids, usually you'd pick them up around noon. Of course, there are available extended school time, so maybe instead of noon it's 3, but generally speaking, let's say it's noon. Noon is great because if you have the advantage of working from home, this is a special time because you can pick up your child from school. It's a very special moment to pick up your child from school. That smile when your child leaves school, sees you, your eyes connect, you both smile, you hug. That's such a special moment. It's worth all the money that you would make at your job in some sense, right? It's really nice to be able to do that. So this is why I put that into the routine. Pick up the child from school, take them to the park, have lunch there, play a little bit. And if your child is on the younger side, at 1 p.m., you would put them in the stroller, and on the way home, they would fall asleep. They would take a nap, generally wake up around 3 p.m. Some parents whose children don't really sleep well, they would say that's a pipe dream. But generally, this is not an unrealistic routine. This is common. In fact, this is what I do. When they wake up, there's a lot of activities that you can do with them that are fun and nice. Some kids like to have a little snack when they wake up. So they wake up, have a snack, and then you can follow that by a combination of play, free time, creative time. Some parents are okay with letting kids watch cartoons. If you are pressed for work and if you do not have babysitting, cartoons is a great last resort. But it shouldn't be your first option. Different parents play this differently. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do with cartoons. There are many ways you can go here. What I do is I save cartoons as a special treat. It's not a daily treat, but if I'm extra busy, if there's no babysitting, then cartoons. But if not, if I can spend time, then as a present parent, I'd rather go to the park with my kids or maybe meet some of their friends so they can play with their friends. And usually, again, it's at the park or something. Unless it's cold, then it's probably some kind of playroom or something like that. And usually that combination of activities takes a while, and it takes you towards evening. So we'll skip towards 5 p.m. the parents usually wind down their workday, and whoever was the main caretaker during the day, that person can spend more time catching up on their work. Because one of the assumptions is that today, many of us not only work remotely or have the option to work remotely many days, but we also have flexible times. Let's say you're a software engineer. It doesn't really matter if you write your code in the morning or in the evening or in the afternoon, as long as your code is written. You don't have to be there 9 to 5 writing code. Most jobs are much more fluid this way, and precisely because of that flexibility, we can have a flexible schedule and spend more quality time with our children. So around 6:30 or even 5:30, you can start the bedtime routine, which includes dinner, bath time, story time, bedtime. And then 7:30 p.m., perfect. You have a routine. And generally speaking, whenever there's a parent that's necessary to be present, like to pick up from school, to take to the park, only one parent goes. If you have two parents not working at a time when they're supposed to be working, that's a little problematic. It's not sustainable. It's even very hard to do this with one parent. And of course, you might say, well, it's very healthy for the child to be with both parents and hang out with both parents to see the parents interact. Yes, this is what you can do during the weekend for sure. But also, you can have two parents do some of these activities, any of these activities, but with the caveat that it's going to take a lot from your work, because what you're doing in all of this, both of the parents are really stretching themselves thin at work, because they would be much more productive working many hours together, sitting and focusing. This way they have to focus on the child, focus on the work, focus on the child, focus on the work. It's crazy. But in the next video, I'm going to show you how to solve this craziness so that now you have your routine for your child. In the next video, let's look at the routine for the parents so that the parents can still be productive at work and focus. In this video, I'm going to give you a very, very basic, as you can see, schedule that will help you stay sane and rested and present at both your job and with your children. So this is an example of a schedule that my wife and I made during COVID of all times, when we didn't have any school and we didn't have babysitting for a period of time, and we both had to keep our jobs. And my wife's job is very stressful. She's a manager at some big company, so she has to be present, obviously on Zoom, but she had to be kind of present in a lot of meetings. My job was very stressful because obviously I'm running a business. It's very hard and everything depends on me. I run one of those one-person businesses. So if I'm not present, the business is just not moving forward. So with these challenges, there was one advantage, is that my schedule was 100% flexible. Although, not really, because the time I take away from work, that just means the business is not doing better. So it's really a sacrifice in my part. Even though I'm flexible, it's a sacrifice. In any case, before we set a schedule, we were driving ourselves absolutely crazy because no one knew who's going to watch the kids in the next hour. No one knew what they could do in 3 hours. Nobody could schedule anything. And literally, I had to destroy my entire coaching business. Like, a part of my business was I was doing business coaching. It's impossible to schedule coaching calls when you live in an apartment, like not a full house. That's where we were living at that time. You have kids screaming, and it was just not possible for me to schedule a call. So I killed the coaching business. I stopped doing a lot of client-facing work. So I ended up immediately losing some money, which isn't so bad because it just opened up more time for me to work on things that are more passive income. So that part wasn't so bad, but it should be noted that some sacrifices had to be made. So with that in mind, what we ended up doing is a schedule like this. Because before the schedule, like I said, we were going crazy. It was stressful, and it was really unhealthy for everybody for a period of time. Like, our mental health was kind of deteriorating because every hour seemed totally random, and stress from work just piled on. And we completely fixed it with the schedule. So let me explain how this worked. Because my wife's schedule was strict, she had to start at like 9 a.m. Before 9 a.m., you see 6 to 9 a.m., she would watch the kid. At that time, we just had one. So at this time, 6 to 9 p.m., you see, I'm not on the schedule, meaning this time, these 3 hours, I'm working on my business. But at 9 a.m., my wife had to start work. So I took over the next 3 hours until noon. And sometimes I was able to do a little work while my daughter was playing. I was able to answer emails by using my phone. So I wasn't totally missing out on the work, but largely I was missing out on the work. But at the same time, it should be noted that I got a lot of real quality time with my daughter. At this time, we went to the park a lot. We did all these fun things. We bonded really well. We had a great time. Sure, I spent less time working, less time making money, but I got something priceless. And that's really something to be grateful for forever, that I got to do that. Like the cute phases, the phases where you wave to the buses and the bus driver waves back, and that makes her day, and in turn that makes my day, and then we have a great time talking about how the bus driver is so great and all this. That's cute and special. And just to explain how I handled work and being present with my daughter, every rare once in a while when she was doing some kind of independent play, I would pull out my phone. I would make sure she doesn't see me on the phone too much, because I wanted to show her that I'm present. It's important that they see that you're present there. And when she needed me, I would put the phone down. So I was mostly present for her, but also I was able to not really make tremendous progress at work, but make sure nothing fell through the cracks. And then by noon, my wife had her lunch hour. So she took over, and that included feeding our daughter and putting her to afternoon nap. So usually our daughter woke up around 2:30. And so from noon to 2:30, I got to work again. So you see, my work day is kind of building. From 6 to 9, I got 3 hours of work. Here, I got from noon to 2:30, I got another 2.5 hours of work. And notice, this 9 a.m. to noon, if you spend it in the park playing with your child, or, children, sometimes if they're young, they want you to carry them. And if they're not young, they can play games. This is legitimate exercise. It's not like you're running or jogging or lifting weights, but you're very active. So in a sense, if you manage your diet well, you may not need to go to the gym a lot or anything like that, just because you're getting a lot of activity. You're actually living a healthier lifestyle than you would if you were working. In any case, after our daughter woke up from bedtime, I would watch her from 2:30 to about 5. And at 5, my wife would start to wind down her workday, and she would take over playing with our daughter, meaning I would be able to work in the evening, like from 5 p.m. on. That was my free time. I can work if I needed to. I can get extra exercises if I needed to. I can go shopping for food if I needed to, everything like that. And so this way, we as adults had a schedule. And when I would schedule my next day and the tasks for my next day, I would know exactly when I can do which tasks, when the apartment might be quiet, when it might not be quiet, etc. Similarly, my wife knew when to schedule her meetings and when to not. And sometimes her meetings didn't require her to be present. Sometimes she would be able to take our daughter in a stroller. So she would be doing the meeting on a conference call, but she would be outside. So that will give me an extra maybe half an hour somewhere during the day. So there's a little bit of flexibility in this schedule, but generally speaking, it's extremely simple, and the adults get large blocks of time to work on their challenging jobs. And for most people, this can work because most people have this kind of a situation where, just statistically speaking, usually you'd have like one person having a flexible schedule, the other person having a less flexible schedule. If both people have a less flexible schedule, the solution becomes very easy and obvious. You have to hire either babysitting or take the children to daycare from early on, or get the grandparents involved, or get the buy-in from one of the employers at least to have somewhat of a flexible schedule, considering these special circumstances that you don't have a babysitter for whatever reason. Maybe you can't hire one, maybe you can't afford it, they're very expensive. So if you cannot get a babysitter or daycare or grandparents, then the next option would be to ask the managers at work for a little bit extra flexibility at work. In the absolute worst case, if you cannot get daycare, work flexibility, there's always cartoons. Cartoons for a long time are not that good for children. So generally speaking, most people will be able to find at least some solution within this framework that will work for them so they can maintain a sane schedule for the adults. If for some reason you try all these options and you really can't, you start having other options of maybe one person will take on a different job or no job. And of course, that requires tremendous sacrifices financially, but it's also healthier for the children because especially if children are like under the age of 6 or 7, it's so much better when the parents are there. The parents want to spend the time. The parents educate better. You bond better with your children, etc. And as children get older, they become more independent, and so you can start to get back to a more typical adult schedule. But also, as children get older, you have additional options. You have options to teach them about online business. So let's say you stop your main job, but what you can do is say 5 out of the hours in a day or 3 out of the hours in a day, you are working on your new business, your online business with your child if they're like 10 years old or older. So that way you can actually teach them real life skills they might use, like an online business that you can start and work from home. It might not make a lot of money, but it might make some supplemental income, but at the same time you're saving money by not having to get babysitting. So this is a schedule that I actually, and so just to sum this up, this is not theoretical. This is something that I literally did, and this made my life much more organized. My wife's and my mental health went up and stayed at a reasonable level. It's never great when you're watching children, but it stayed up at a good, healthy level, and we were able to do this long-term and sustainably while keeping our jobs and investing care and attention into our child. Now, precisely because you're going to have a lot less time to focus on your work, like physical hours, you'll have fewer hours. You have to do more work with those hours. You can accomplish that with 2 ways. One is extreme focus. When one person is working, the other adult who's looking after the children knows minimal noise, minimal children barging in. If there is noise, children crying, take them outside. They have to protect the other adult working. Their focus has to be uninterrupted. That has to be a conversation that both adults have. They got to get on the same page about that. There has to be absolute buy-in that you need absolute total quiet and focus, no distractions. Because even if you have focus without distraction, your job is going to be hard and you're still going to be challenged at your job. It's not like that's going to solve everything, but at least it's not going to detract from you because you've got to really zone in and focus during the time that you have available. The good news is, let's say you have an hour somewhere in your day to work. You're not going to waste your time. Like if you came to your office, for example, and you have your whole day to work there and relax, you might check your email, you might IM your friend, you might have a chit chat with some coworker. None of that, right? If you have only 1 hour, you're going to boom, 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 work and accomplish more in the 1 hour with focus. Focus is your absolute friend, but actually you make focus a family member because it is so important in this case. And then the other way to help you become more productive is smart planning of your work and projects. So you only do the most impactful tasks. Of course, it's not always possible if you have a boss, but if you are a little bit flexible and free, you've got to make yourself really disciplined about thinking ahead about what's going to be most impactful and only doing that. The better you become at that, it's going to directly correlate with your success at work, less time you have to spend at work, and more time spending with children. These 2 skills, focus and decision making, it doesn't come on day one, but these are the skills that will save you so much time that you were underutilizing when you had the privilege, when you had the luxury of relaxing at work and going at your own pace. Now it's a little bit more intense. Boom, boom, boom. It's not too sustainable. You can't work like that all the time, but many of the days, many of the hours will be like that, and you've got to be up to the task of focus, decision making. Those are going to save you. They're going to help you keep performing well at work, perhaps even honestly better than you would have otherwise. It's actually been the case for me because I have an extreme lack of time resource. My decision making has to be so disciplined. It doesn't mean that I make mistakes. It doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes anymore, but it just means that I give so much care to deciding what task that I will work on, that ultimately I make better decisions overall in the long term. So again, good luck, better focus, better decision making. It will help you a lot. In this video, I want to talk about this interesting nuance in that because you're now living not just for yourself but for others, your time that otherwise you might have spent going to the movies, doing something fun, pursuing some hobbies, that time, you don't have that time anymore. That time goes to your children or your work. So the question you might have is, well, what can I get rid of in my schedule? Because it seems like for most of us that we've already gotten rid of everything in our schedule. And a case in point might be, you probably have friends who don't have children, and if you ask them, do you have any free time? They'll say, no, I'm so busy. And you will just laugh at that, right? Because they have no idea, because when you have children, you have so much less time even. But they think that they're stretched to the limit, and they think they've already sacrificed everything. So that just goes to show that there's more to cut. So how do you cut things from your schedule, like an extra hobby, extra going out, extra something, without damaging your own fulfillment or health? Because very often our health gets sacrificed, like we don't get enough exercise, we stress eat, etc. So what I would suggest, and this is something that I did and it worked for me, is to pick one thing you do for health, because you cannot kill yourself. Okay, you have to stay there long term for your child. You can't gain a bunch of weight. You can't miss on sleep. You can't. It's way harder now, but you can't, because long term it's not sustainable. And then also you need one thing for yourself, some hobby. For me, it's music. I wanted to start another side business. Like, I really like this one idea and I tried it, but then I realized I just don't have enough time, killed it off. So a lot of things like that come up, the nice to have, the fun to haves, the fun ideas, the curiosities. I hate saying you should not pursue your curiosities. Usually you would find me saying pursue your curiosities, but realistically speaking, even if you pursue your curiosities but you don't have time to pursue them, you're not even going to really truly pursue them to the level they need to be pursued, because everything interesting takes a lot of time, and so you're just not even going to do well at them. It's going to fail as though you never even tried in most cases. That's actually what happened with my business that I tried to start. I tried to start it. I couldn't put extra time into it because I already have family. I already have another business. I just couldn't fit another thing. So I decided eventually, okay, that was a mistake. Now I know better. Killed it off. Killed off that new business idea. Just can't add. Pick one thing for fulfillment, one thing for health, and then that's it. Everything else goes work, family, and as time opens up there, if any time opens up, like your children grow up a little bit, they need less care. They grow up a little bit, they go to school a little more, you have more time for yourself. If your work doesn't gobble up that free time, okay, then you can come back to your hobbies. But in the beginning, for your own sanity, it will actually help you. If you have to do less, if you juggle fewer things, it will actually help you so much to juggle them better, perform better at those things, but also enjoy them and not have the overwhelm just push on you. Because when you have your little bit of free time, you got to do 20 things, and that's just crazy. You can't work like that. So it's actually going to help you do better at the few things that you'll be able to focus on. So that's my food for thought for you about how and what to cut, even if you feel like maybe you've cut everything already out of your schedule. With this video, I want to begin the section of the course which is going to focus on your relationships with other parents, both for the health and development of your children, but also for your own mental health and productivity. So the great thing about other parents who have children that are similar aged to your children is that sometimes they can watch your children as your children play with their children. Sometimes you can do them that favor. It's very little different once you get the hang of it, watching one child or two versus 3 or 4, because they're just going to play together. You just have to, like a shepherd, you're watching them, you can play, interact with them, making sure they don't get hurt, making sure they have the snacks, but you're already not working during that time. You can take on a larger load, like another dog or something if you have a dog. Like, it all goes together, okay? So one parent takes 2 sets of children to the park, considering and provided that there's trust between the families, they know each other well, perhaps they're from a similar community or similar background, or they know each other from before, whatever. There's trust. One parent takes the children, 3 other parents work or do exercise or do whatever else. And by the way, the person who's taking the children, they're getting exercise too, because they have to make sure this one doesn't fall, that one doesn't hurt themselves, the other one needs something, the other one has to go to the bathroom, and there's constant movement. And if you spend like 1 or 2 hours doing that, instead of just passing out on a bench somewhere, which is sometimes happens to the best of us, then that's exercise too, even for the person who is watching the children. Especially you can pick some active things to do, because why not? You get a little bit more activity as well. So that's a great tip that I want to start with, is leverage other parents and trade. One time you watch the children, yours and theirs, the other time they watch the children, yours and theirs, and that way it's not opening up time for one parent, it's opening up time for 3 other parents, so you get double the results, however you count, but you just get much greater results that way. Now, I also want to talk about the mental health benefits of being friends with other parents who have children similar age to your children. And this is all going to be for your own health benefit, because you need more social connections. Because if you just work, especially if you just work a lot remotely, or you have like a business like I do where I don't really interact that much with people, I just work from home and that's it, mostly interact with my computer, it gets a little bit like too on your own, and you need other people because they will understand how you feel, they're going through the same things too, and that extra social connection, even if it's not great and even if it's not crazy deep, like you don't talk about your inner feelings, but you just have some nice social connection, some group that you are belonging to, like a group of parents, that goes a really long way to satisfying a lot of your needs for social interaction, which is a huge part of your overall feeling of well-being. That part you cannot neglect. So make friends with other parents.